It's the most wonderful time of the year. No, it's not Christmas, it's E3 season, fools. E3 is like Christmas for video game YouTubers though, because we get so much information, so much new stuff, announcements, game surprises. It's always a great time, and it's always fun to talk about all these video game announcements. And one company that we talk about from time to time on this channel is, of course, Nintendo. Well, Nintendo just announced their E3 2021 plans. We have the schedule of when things are going to happen, what to expect during these events, and it's kind of interesting to see. So I want to break down what was announced today by Nintendo for their E3 2021 plans, talk about some things that I expect to happen at this event. It's going to be a very fun video. So if this is your first time on the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button. Be sure to like and share the video if you enjoy it as well. But let's talk about what Nintendo announced this morning for their E3 2021 plans and why it could be a very interesting E3 for Nintendo. So the timing of when they are going to do their E3 presentation is, of course, very interesting. People are wanting to know, well, when are we going to get all this information? What's going to happen? How long is this going to be? What sort of stuff is going to happen? Well, Nintendo will be doing their E3 presentation on June 15th, which is Tuesday at 9 a.m. Pacific time, which means 12 p.m. Eastern time, which is good because I like afternoon streams. I don't like morning streams. I don't like mornings in general. I would rather sleep in a little bit. Now, what's kind of interesting about that is that E3 is actually running from June 12th until June 15th officially. So Nintendo will actually be going on the last day of E3. Some people are a bit concerned by that. Why are they going on the last day? Blah, blah, blah. I don't know. I don't really see it as a big deal. I did see this sort of pop up on Twitter, some concerns, some thoughts about this situation. To me, it's just kind of like you want to end on a banger. You want to end on something very interesting. You want to end on something very big. So if Nintendo does indeed have a big E3 plan, this would be a great way to do it. Just have this big explosion at the end of E3 2021 as they are going on the last day. And of course, we are getting an official Nintendo Direct for E3 2021 called Nintendo Direct E3 2021. Very original name there. And basically, Nintendo says, tune in for roughly 40 minutes of info focused exclusively on software, mostly releasing in 2021 for the Nintendo Switch system. Now, you can look at that and sort of see something very interesting. Obviously, a lot of us have been talking about this Nintendo Switch revision. It's supposedly coming very soon as far as an announcement is concerned. And Nintendo saying exclusively on software has people raising their eyebrows over this. Of course, the whole thing about the Nintendo Switch revision being announced before E3 2021 is so that companies can showcase their games running on this new system and they look better. Optics are everything. We talked about this in yesterday's video, sort of why this is happening with this supposed Nintendo Switch revision announcement happening before E3 instead of at E3. I think it makes a little bit more sense now as well, considering that Nintendo is going on the last day. So if you have companies showing off games running on the Nintendo Switch revision before Nintendo even announces it, if they were to announce it during E3 instead of before E3, it would be kind of weird. And a lot of this, of course, is contingent on third-party companies. I feel like they are the ones that are pushing Nintendo to do this Nintendo Switch revision more so than Nintendo themselves. Like I said, we talked about this in yesterday's video. If you did not check out yesterday's video, be sure to go check it out after checking out this video. We sort of do a more deep dive into why all this is happening, but it is very interesting. We got 40 minutes of game information exclusively on software, mostly for 2021. Obviously, there's going to be some 2022 stuff in there as well. But if you think about it, we don't really know about 2021 stuff. We'll talk more so about software towards the end of the video, at least what we know software-wise. But I think that's very interesting because I think there's going to be a lot of new game announcements. And then, of course, how do you talk about these new game announcements? Well, you got to showcase them. And right after Nintendo wraps up their E3 2021 Nintendo Direct, there will be a Treehouse presentation. Stick around after the Nintendo Direct presentation for roughly 3 hours of deep dives into select games with those who know them best, as Nintendo of America's Treehouse staff and guests stream live gameplay and commentary. So if you've never watched a Treehouse presentation, basically they take the games that were just announced or revealed during the E3 presentation and then actually play them, so you can learn about the gameplay mechanics, you can learn about the game itself more so than just a fancy trailer. Now, what's also interesting and something to keep in mind is that the fact that there have been game announcements during Treehouse presentations before. If you remember, Metroid Samus Returns for the Nintendo 3DS was actually announced after Nintendo's Direct that year, and they talked about that game, revealed that game, and then showcased that game during the Treehouse presentation. So could we see some surprise announcements also at the Treehouse presentation that don't necessarily make it into Nintendo's Direct presentation, I don't think it's outside the realm of possibility. But then, of course, you have to ask yourself, well, what's going to be at this Nintendo Direct? When you look at what Nintendo has announced for 2021 and beyond that will be coming out after E3 2021, there's really not much stuff. You have Skyward Sword HD, you have No More Heroes 3, you got the Pokemon games and Pokemon Arceus, but really beyond that, we don't know anything. So I kind of want to speculate a bit on what I expect to see at this Nintendo Direct for E3 2021. I think the first thing we're going to see is the new Smash Brothers character. Obviously, these characters are a very big deal, and to sort of do these at E3, I always feel packs a little bit more of a punch. Like, look at when Banjo-Kazooie was announced as coming to Smash Brothers. So I feel like it's going to be a big announcement, considering that this will probably be taking place at E3. Now, what character do I expect it to be? I have 3 characters, and we're going to go in order from most likely to least likely. I think the most likely character is Crash Bandicoot. Looking at Crash Bandicoot on the Nintendo Switch, we of course got the Crash Insane trilogy, we got Crash 4, and that was a great version of the game. And I just think Crash Bandicoot has that sort of, style that fits perfectly into Smash Brothers because of that 90s nostalgia. It was Crash Bandicoot was the face of Sony. Sega had, of course, Sonic the Hedgehog, and Nintendo had Mario. So I feel like having Crash Bandicoot in Smash Brothers would be like a coming a full circle now that he's a multi-platform character, much like Sonic the Hedgehog. The second character I have is Ryu from Ninja Gaiden. Now, of course, this is kind of contingent because the Ninja Gaiden Master Collection is coming out on June 10th for the Nintendo Switch, and there's been lots of rumors of him being in a Smash Brothers game. And once again, it sort of makes sense when you look at how prominent Ninja Gaiden was on the NES. Like, it was one of the biggest franchises there was. Like, people loved Ninja Gaiden. It was considered to be top tier stuff, even though it was hard as hell. So I would not be surprised if he is potentially a character in Smash Brothers. And then my wild card has to be Master Chief. Now, obviously, Nintendo likes to have characters in Smash Brothers that are already available on Nintendo systems. There is lots of rumors of Microsoft and Nintendo potentially announcing something at E3 2021. So that's sort of contingent on that. It's sort of a wild card, like I said, but I mean, Master Chief is in Fortnite. So obviously, the Halo brand is willing to expand, and I think that would be really cool. But I think as far as my main guess is, I'm going to go with Crash Bandicoot. Of course, there's going to be the Legend of Zelda stuff at this event as well, as the Legend of Zelda is entering its 35th anniversary. Skyward Sword HD, like I said previously, does not come out until after E3, so I think we're going to learn some more about that game. And, I'm still not over the amiibo situation. I think it's just absolutely ridiculous that a quality of life improvement is hidden behind a $25 amiibo that is already being scalped for like $70, $80, and people are paying it. It's just like, Jesus Christ, Nintendo, read the room here with this. But hopefully there will be some more announcements about Skyward Sword HD as far as additional content or additional quality of life improvements is. If it is just a one-to-one copy of the Wii version with enhanced controls and enhanced visuals, I guess that's cool. Like I said, I never finished the Wii version of the game, so I will be strictly playing this just to have those better controls. But of course, you have the other Zelda stuff going on. You also have the Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild 2. Now, I know that Nintendo did say, hey, these games are 2021 games mostly, but there is going to be some 2022 games. Like I said, Pokemon Arceus will probably be at this event with a new trailer, and of course that game is a January 2022 game. So Breath of the Wild 2, I still feel is a wild card as far as the release date is concerned. I think there is potential, and I think that there is a chance that it could come out at the end of 2021, like holiday 2021, but I do think that 2022 makes a little bit more sense, just sort of depending on how Nintendo handles the situation and how development of this game has gone along. Aside from that initial trailer that we saw, we haven't really seen anything from this game, but obviously if it's being built on the Breath of the Wild engine, it does have potential to be a lot further in development than some other games. And of course you have the whole new titles in the Legend of Zelda franchise. Could we see more compilations like we've talked about with games like Ocarina of Time HD and maybe Majora's Mask HD in one game collection? Obviously there's games like Wind Waker and Twilight Princess. There's so many Legend of Zelda games, and there's so many things that you can do with that. I feel like that's going to be a very interesting thing to keep your eye on. And then of course we have the rumored games of E3 2021. There's been lots of talks about Metroid and Donkey Kong making an appearance at E3 this year with new titles. Now, supposedly both of these titles are 2D games, and I just don't know how I feel about that. It just seemed kind of weird for both of these games, both of these franchises that we really haven't seen in quite a while, at least in prominence, both being 2D games. I'm not saying 2D games are bad or anything like that, but I just feel like the value of 2D games has slightly diminished over time because you could do a lot more with 3D games. games. And when you're looking at series like Metroid and you're looking at series like Donkey Kong, I think people want to see 3D entries in these series because it's been so long. Donkey Kong only had one game on the N64 that was in 3D. Metroid, of course, we're all waiting on Metroid Prime, so I guess it makes a little bit more sense for a 2D Metroid game, but then you have to get into the whole thing of, well, can you really charge $60 for a 2D Metroidvania game when there's so many Metroidvania games out there? But I definitely think we will see something from Donkey Kong and Metroid. For Metroid, it could just potentially be a Metroid Prime 4 update. You gotta remember, we haven't seen anything from this game since 2017 when we got the Splash logo, so I do think that both of these franchises will be there, but as far as the games are concerned, that's going to be very interesting to see, and I'm definitely very interested to see the reaction to these games if they are both 2D games. And then, of course, you have surprises. Like I said, we really don't know much about Nintendo's 2021 lineup beyond games like The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword and No More Heroes 3 for the Nintendo Switch. Could we see a Mario Kart 9, a Super Mario Odyssey 2, a Mario and Rabbids 2? Like, there's a lot of games that you can do. There's a lot of franchises you could tap into as well. And Nintendo usually does a pretty good job of keeping their secrets at hand. I think it's going to be a very interesting E3. I think you're going to see more third-party collaborations as well, especially if this Nintendo Switch revision does come to fruition, because you're going to see games running on this Switch revision before Nintendo even talks about it in their E3 presentation as far as their games are concerned. So it kind of makes, you know, companies want to step up their game a little bit if they're showing off these high visual fidelity games, you know, potentially running at up to 4K through artificial scaling and whatnot. So I think it's going to be very interesting as far as surprises are concerned. I'm kind of hoping for Xenoblade Chronicles X to get an announcement to the Nintendo Switch, because really that's the one Wii U game that deserves it. You got to remember, you had to download like texture packs and stuff for it, and you know, the Wii U definitely struggled to run the games at times, and I feel like that's the Xenoblade game that would look great and run great on the Nintendo Switch with this additional power. And it's such a good game too. It's my favorite Xenoblade, and I know people are going to roast me in the comments for saying that, but it is by far my favorite Xenoblade game. I absolutely love that game, the skills and stuff like that. Just a fantastic game. I would love to play that game once again on the Nintendo Switch. But I think there are going to be a lot of surprises, and like I said, it's the most wonderful time of the year. This is the time when we get new video game announcements. We get to speculate on stuff. We get to see what these companies are working on for the second half of 2021 and beyond, and I think it's going to be a great E3. I won't be live streaming anything from E3. I like to watch the presentations as they come, and even Summer Games Fest as well. I like to watch the presentations, take my notes as I watch the presentation, and then react to it. You know, there's going to be a million people streaming it, so go check them out. But as far as I'm concerned, I just want to make my videos. I want to break it down, give you guys my analysis, because I think you guys seem to like that. So that is what Nintendo is doing at E3, what we know for sure and what I'm kind of speculating on. So let me know in the comment section down below what you think of all of this. Is this going to be a big E3 for Nintendo? Will it be a bit of a disappointment? Will it be a bit on the lax side? And as always, guys, thank you for checking out this video. Like I said, if you are new to the channel, be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. Check out other videos on the channel as well. Go Knicks! It's game 5. It's do or die. You know, we had a good season regardless. I don't care. We're not even supposed to be in the playoffs. And as always, folks, I'll catch you guys on the next video. Later.